Persecution ended, but Christians remembered arrest, accusation, trial, and martyrdom. So peace did not automatically become a simple, happy ending for the church. The old fear disappeared, and many breathed freely for the first time. Yet the church did not enter a safe age after all. Danger changed its shape. Now it came not from prison, but from nearness to power and official protection within ordinary Christian life. In cities, the recently persecuted community received attention, support, buildings, roads, and imperial protection, changing its public position almost overnight throughout Roman lands. At worship, a question arose that would deeply follow the church for centuries within the new imperial order of favor and pressure. Could the church remain faithful to Christ when the empire was no longer its enemy, but a powerful patron standing near at every door? Constantine became a turning figure. Yet he did not make Christianity the empire's official religion or erase the ancient order by decree. At court, Constantine remained supreme pontiff, chief priest of the Roman system, and was baptized only near the final days of life. The age after Constantine was not instant Christian victory, but a long transition through emperors, disputes, and uncertain loyalties throughout Roman lands. His sons supported the church, but their reign was marked by Trinitarian disputes that revealed Christianity's new public conflicts under imperial rule. Paganism continued among old aristocrats, villages, soldiers, and learned circles, because habits and fears changed more slowly than imperial policy could change. History had turned sharply, but beneath new laws and ceremonies, ordinary people still carried older loyalties, questions, and religious instincts quietly within them. After Constantine's death, paganism became a central imperial issue, and Constantius declared worship of images a capital crime in the empire's law. Yet, society was not ready for rupture, so the law was often ignored while Julian tried to restore the ancient gods again. Julian's reign showed that the old world did not intend to leave, without one last effort and political resistance against Christian power. After Julian, Jovian and Valentinian continued the earlier policy of supporting the church, while stability slowly returned to imperial. Religious policy again, decisive. Measures against paganism came only near the 4th century's end, after decades of unresolved struggle and shifting imperial choices throughout Rome. The shift from toleration to prohibition took decades, and every passing decade changed not only law, but also Christian inner life as well. Under Gratian, state support for pagan cults received decisive blows, as government funding for temples and sacrifices was officially ended from above. He also kept the altar of victory from returning to the Senate, and Theodosius later ordered pagan sacrifices stopped and temples closed. Some temples were not destroyed, but redirected towards civic purposes, showing imperial policy could transform sacred spaces without immediate demolition or violence. In 392, the ban widened further. Pagan worship, both private and public, was forbidden under imperial authority throughout the Roman world by law. Christianity gradually stood with the law, while paganism moved toward the side of those now pressured and pushed outside power and protection. The world had turned. Yesterday's persecuted faith now stood beside imperial prohibition, and victory carried a painful moral reversal within Christian memory. The troubling change appeared in people's actions, as some bishops and crowds treated new decrees as permission to use force against local pagans. Even before Constantine, some Christians destroyed idols as service to God, yet Elvira refused to call such deaths martyrdom within the church. Now that the church enjoyed official favor, restraining crowds became harder when religious zeal met public permission and social anger together dangerously. Famous leaders, including Martin of Tours, helped destroy pagan shrines, showing how victory entered local conflicts in rural communities with visible force. In Alexandria, Theophilus turned the Serapeum into a battleground of humiliation, revealing how victory could tempt former victims to use power harshly. Barely emerging from persecution, the church now faced the temptation of victory, when righteous zeal could become domination over others' lives too. The age's language showed the change. Ancient religion had no single name beyond many gods, cities, rites, and local traditions across Roman lands. After the 4th century, the old ways were increasingly gathered under one word: paganism, though paganus once meant a country dweller from villages. The word became a religious label for those holding the ancient, increasingly rural world against the new Christian center of public life. That word showed Christianity becoming urban and official, while old cults retreated into villages and older rural customs beyond city power slowly. A change of name became a change of perspective, as yesterday's normal life was made strange, backward, and increasingly suspect before Christian eyes. In this changed language, the new order already sounded both victorious and dangerous, because labels can quietly reshape public memory for whole peoples. Constantine's conversion ended persecution against the church, and with it disappeared the expectation of torture, accusation, execution, and martyrdom for believers everywhere. Peace brought privileges that changed church leaders. As church property received tax exemption and wealth began to grow rapidly around sacred institutions, bishops received exemption from civic duties that had burdened many prominent people within the old Roman social order. Before Constantine's reforms began, clergy were exempted from taxes, military service, and heavy public works, changing the practical meaning of ministry within Roman society by then. These blessings answered old fears, but they also created temptations, because favor can quietly train leaders toward comfort, wealth, influence, and power. When the church stopped being weak, it had to learn strength without greed, authority without domination, and honor without pride before God. Constantine protected the church and opened imperial doors, even giving bishops access to the postal system at Arles for official church journeys. At Nicaea, this access became more visible, as the emperor sought to influence moral questions. And through law and Christian counsel as well, some legal decisions were likely influenced by Christian teaching and new advisors around the emperor's court at this decisive historical moment closely. The deepest results came not only from laws, but from the clergy's new prestige in public imagination and civic life after Constantine. Bishops gained honor, influence, and authority to settle disputes that had once belonged to government or local civic order in the cities. Thus, the church became not only a believing community, but also a public force where roads, courts, and palace interests converged daily. In many eyes, conversion could now lead to respect and advantage, while Theodoret described Lucius buying a bishopric for power and status. Licinius appointed him Bishop of Alexandria as if church office were a political reward, showing how quickly corruption appeared within sacred office. As episcopal prestige grew, more people sought office not for service, but for position, influence, and advantage within the public church then. The church received protection, but also the temptation to live by the logic of court politics and rivalry near imperial power daily. The simplicity of house churches slowly gave way to status, ceremony, and struggles for influence in the new public church after Constantine. This was not the end of faith, but another kind of trial, where prayer had to survive palace noise and ambition nearby. The empire's rapid conversion brought mixed faith, as tombs could hold Christian and pagan symbols within the same burial beside each other. In sickness, some believers still used magical practices, while gladiatorial combats continued, and even Christians sometimes attended them without seeing contradiction clearly. Christian preachers faced not only enemies, but shallow conversion among crowds entering the church too quickly after the empire changed course publicly. Old habits do not disappear on baptism day, especially when society changes faster than hearts can be formed by faithful teaching slowly. Many sermons therefore attacked superstition among believers, warning against amulets, magic, and fears carried into the church from the old religious world. The church grew larger, yet the depth of faith became painful, because numbers could hide unchanged hearts within a Christian crowd's life. Constantine's decree made the first day special for worship, while Christians gathered around the Eucharist on the Lord's resurrection day each week. Yet the day also connected with the unconquered sun, So old and new meanings coexisted in the city's rhythm for a time. Christians no longer needed to gather secretly at dawn before ordinary work began, because public protection had arrived for Christian worship openly. Worship became visible, public, and protected by the state, changing how believers occupied the ordinary rhythm of city life after Constantine's decree. This relief changed the inner character of gathering, as small hidden assemblies became public services with open doors before the whole city. When faith steps into the square, it gains a stronger voice, but it can also lose silence before God inside the soul. After Constantine, worship increasingly felt the imperial court's influence. His prayers and services included special respect for the emperor within the church. Ministers once wore everyday clothing, but in the changing empire they began using ceremonial garments and language closer to priesthood and ritual. Court gestures of respect entered church space. On Sundays, even people before the emperor did not kneel in the throne room either. Later, Christians also stood on Sundays before God the King, showing how imperial etiquette touched Christian worship and theology inside bodily prayer. Even the body's posture became a meeting place where church, empire, and theology quietly interpreted one another before the watching congregation there. Worship became more ceremonial and visible, while processions gave the service rhythm, form, and a powerful physical expression inside the basilica space. Choirs developed to give voice to these ceremonial movements, a scale impossible in earlier house churches with small gatherings and low rooms. Architecture, music and movement together shaped sacred space, helping many believers see God's majesty through solemn worship before the public assembly gathered. To others, the same beauty suggested that apostolic simplicity was being lost beneath the grandeur of the new sacred drama around them. Beauty became both blessing and question, because the church had to ask whom its splendor truly glorified before God and empire alike. When persecutions ended, martyr memory grew stronger, as Christians commemorated death anniversaries beside burial places and sacred graves with lamps and prayers. Churches were built over these places, turning memory into worship centers where some believed prayer was especially powerful near saints' honored remains. People even unearthed martyrs' bodies for altars, while others claimed discoveries of forgotten martyrs that no one had known before that moment. Honoring memory could become a search for power, miracles, and prestige. So devotion needed careful spiritual protection within public church life then. The church preserved the martyr's witness, but now had to guard holy memory against superstition and the hunger for signs and status. Helena, Constantine's mother, became central to pilgrimage and holy places. And tradition said she discovered the true cross of Christ in Jerusalem. The cross was soon credited with miraculous power, and its fragments spread throughout Roman lands, connecting believers to Jesus' earthly story physically. Critics saw growing interest in objects, places, and miracles, even as the Holy Land reshaped Christian imagination around the story of Jesus. Pilgrimage helped faith take flesh, but it could also replace inward repentance with an outward journey to a sacred destination far away. Even a holy place became an ambiguous gift. It could lead toward God or distract the heart from Him through visible wonders. Before Constantine, Christian worship was often simple and limited, as believers gathered in homes or sometimes near martyrs' tombs for prayer together. By the 3rd century, special buildings appeared, but after Constantine, large churches rose for Christianity's new public role across imperial society openly. Constantine ordered St. Irene in Constantinople, while Helena built at Bethlehem and on the Mount of Olives as holy places expanded quickly. Similar churches appeared in major imperial cities, giving Christianity stone walls that reshaped believers' imagination and sense of scale in common worship. The movement from house room to high basilica changed not only architecture, but how the church imagined its place before the empire. New churches did not imitate pagan temples, because temples housed deities, while crowds often remained outside in the square before the altar. Christians needed one large space for the whole community, so they chose the public basilica form for gathered worship inside the city. The basilica was usually rectangular, with a long nave, side columns, an atrium, a narthex, and a main worship space for assembly. At the far end, the apse held the bishop and ministers, guiding the community's gaze toward the sacred center of worship together. Architecture now taught movement and attention, turning the gathered church into a visible body oriented toward one holy focus before the altar. Inside the basilica, the nave formed the largest space, while lower side naves allowed light through upper central windows above the congregation. Near the sanctuary stood the choir area, often screened, with pulpits on both sides for scripture and psalms during public worship together. The sanctuary rose above the floor, and the altar often stood near its middle rather than against the back wall behind it. Behind the altar, the semicircular apse became the building's visual focus, giving faith a new public stage for the gathered community's life. The church received not merely a roof, but a shaped environment where space, sight, and movement preached without words to believers daily. Basilicas were adorned with marble, lamps, tapestries, and mosaics made from stone, glass, or porcelain shining before the gathered congregation at worship. Mosaics showed biblical scenes or donors, while the most important image usually stood in the apse before everyone's gaze during common worship. The Virgin with the Child, or Christ in glory, revealed how Christian art absorbed the new political situation inside imperial culture's frame. Christ, Pantocrator, could appear enthroned like a Roman ruler, proclaiming truth while using the language of imperial power before the church visually. Art served faith, yet it also taught believers to imagine majesty through images already shaped by empire and political memory around them. Near basilicas, bishops often built baptistries large enough for dozens, centered on a pool entered by steps for the baptismal descent downward. The pool's round or octagonal shape could suggest womb and coffin, death of the old and birth of the new person together. Baptism was usually performed by immersion or pouring, sometimes combining both, while the baptized received a white robe after kneeling in water. The baptistery's design preached new birth, turning the candidate's descent and rising into visible theology for the watching church at worship together. Even the baptismal building taught the gathering that conversion was not decoration, but death, rebirth, and a new life in Christ himself. Earlier baptism required long teaching, but mass conversion made deep preparation difficult as crowds entered the church rapidly after state favor spread. Many came with little understanding of baptism and brought old beliefs, fears, amulets, and familiar ways of seeking protection into church life. Pastors saw the problem, but the flood of new people exceeded their ability to teach and form mature disciples throughout Roman lands. Numerical growth looked like victory, but it hid a weakness that preachers confronted within the church's life against superstition and shallow faith. The church became larger, yet the challenge was making converts into disciples, not merely adding bodies to the congregation on Sundays alone. The new situation produced a new way of telling history, as some saw Constantine as God's chosen instrument for the Roman order. Eusebius of Caesarea became the best-known voice, seeing imperial victory as the church's journey from suffering to glory fulfilled in human history. An almost official theology of the age emerged, but not all Christians accepted such joy without anxiety about the world's power nearby. If the empire now served God, believers still had to ask what happened to not loving the world as Jesus commanded them. That question opened the next reaction, leaving the honored city for the desert, where faith could be tested differently before God alone. Some Christians saw the church-state alliance not as blessing, but loss, because martyrdom no longer usually proved devotion to Christ before crowds. They sought radical faithfulness through ascetic desert life, where the athlete of Christ fought self, not beasts, before a cheering arena crowd. In the 4th century, zealous believers left for Egypt and Syria, and early monasticism became a great Christian theme of the age. They rejected not Christ, but a comfortable version of Christian life that seemed too close to palace safety and official favor then. When the church approached the palace, part of its heart went into solitude, seeking God beyond comfort and applause in the desert. Not all dissatisfaction fled to the desert. Some stayed and argued within the church over the deep mystery of the Holy Trinity. The Arian controversy was not academic, because it touched the very question of who Christ truly is before God and human history. After Nicaea, the question divided bishops, emperors, and communities, making theological disagreement politically dangerous under the new imperial order of the Church. A dispute over faith could now bring exile, pressure, state support, or loss of office for bishops and churches alike across cities. New closeness to power did not end conflict. It gave conflicts imperial scale and a harsher internal struggle within the Church's life. Julian, opponent of the Christian turn, did not merely tolerate old cults. He wanted to revive paganism with imperial support once more. For Christians, his reign proved Constantine's victory was not irreversible, because imperial power could threaten the Church once more at any moment. Julian's attempt did not restore the ancient order, and after him, Christianity again received imperial support from rulers who reversed course quickly. Nevertheless, his reign revealed how dependent the Church's public destiny had become on the decisions of emperors inside Roman public life then. If one ruler could lift the Church upward, another could press it down, exposing the danger of court favor from the throne. Christians reacted differently to the new order. Some thanked God for the emperor and saw him as God's instrument in human history. Others feared communion with an imperial church could corrupt faithfulness, while some stayed and fought errors through teaching and controversy inside church. The age produced official history, monasticism, and theological conflict, because no single reaction fully saw the danger of making peace with empire. The blessing of peace was real, but spiritual compromise was real too, forcing the Church to discern within its new freedom carefully. The Church could no longer merely survive persecution. It had to judge what faithfulness meant under protection inside a changed world now. From this complex age emerged the fathers of the Church, teachers living without simple categories of victim or victor for Christianity anymore. They had to think deeply about Trinity, power, worship, wealth, and holiness, shaping Christian theology for centuries through debate and prayer together. Constantine's paradox remained nearby, protector of the Church, yet doorway into new temptations and a new chapter for Christian history after persecution. The Church now had to prove faithfulness not beneath a persecutor's sword, but beneath a patron's smile and imperial friendship close nearby. The next question begins here. How can the gospel stay whole when the world invites cooperation with comfort, honor, and power too? New privileges touched walls, property, land, and inheritance, as Constantine allowed people to leave property to the Church in their wills legally. Over time, the Church could own vast lands and wealth, which could help the needy through mercy when faithfully administered for them. For ambitious people, church wealth could become a road to influence, turning the same gift toward pride instead of humble service alone. The Church had to learn to possess property without letting property possess the Church's desires inside this new age of imperial authority. This trial had less blood than persecution, but no less spiritual danger for leaders, congregations, and the faithful throughout the empire now. Imperial privileges helped the Church, but they also changed how disputes were settled in communities once guided by pastors and elders patiently. Now behind a church dispute could appear a magistrate, a court, or an imperial letter applying pressure where persuasion once stood alone. State help could stop chaos, but it could also replace pastoral persuasion with external force and political influence within church decisions forcefully. The New Age raised questions about freedom and boundaries. Where did imperial care end and outside control begin over the Church's life? This difficult question did not disappear after his reign. It returned whenever power tried to solve problems of faith from outside repeatedly. Constantine also changed laws touching morality and public life, probably reflecting Christian influence on imperial thinking during the Church's new favor there. Law can restrain outward evil, but even Christianized legislation cannot replace preaching, repentance, discipleship, or the healed heart inside each human person. The empire could command Sunday rest, but it could not command love for God or instantly remove old fears from the soul. Here lay the limit of any Christian emperor. Legal protection could shelter faith, but only conversion made faith alive within human hearts. Faith could receive law's protection throughout Rome, but living faith still required inner transformation beyond every imperial command and public decree issued. Even as Christianity gained support, old culture remained rooted in cities through philosophy, memory of gods, and classical wisdom among educated people. In the army, older religious habits survived, especially among soldiers from many provinces with different fears and loyalties beneath official changes too. In villages, ancient rites remained tied to harvest, family, sickness, and death, beyond the reach of quick legal victory from the capital. People changed public words faster than inner hopes, so pastors preached against superstition even within new church life and Christian congregational life. The old world left slowly, leaving traces in language, gestures, habits, and fears long after laws had changed on official documents everywhere. For illiterate believers, the new basilica became a school of images. Its walls told biblical stories without written texts for their eyes. Light columns and processions taught through the body what words had once explained in smaller gatherings inside homes and hidden rooms before. Yet images could also carry imperial language into the church, making the gospel's simplicity feel more difficult to protect in common worship. Beauty could lift the heart, but outward splendor could also blind it, if beauty served its own shine rather than God alone. Every basilica silently asked who was truly king there, because palace language and Christian worship shared space before believers' eyes each day. Despite many changes, worship still centered on communion, while baptism usually brought people into the already baptized community throughout Roman lands together. When assemblies became enormous, worship practice changed. Believers no longer felt like one small family around a table in a house together. A believer now stood among hundreds, with the altar far away, gaining majesty but risking weaker personal participation in the sacred mystery. The church had to preserve communion's mystery inside a new mass form, shaped by basilicas and public scale after official favor arrived. The question was not whether circumstances would change, but how the church could change faithfully without losing the center of its worship. History, after Constantine shows victory, can test the soul as deeply as defeat, even after persecution has ended for the church outwardly. Under persecution, the church learned courage and suffering. Under patronage, it had to learn humility and purity of motives before God again. The first trial threatened the body, while the second threatened the heart, imagination, and quiet desire for compromise beneath official favor nearby. A persecutor demands denial openly, but a patron may offer compromise gently, making this age's danger more subtle and spiritually difficult daily. The church escaped the lions, but now had to avoid becoming court decoration, a tension lasting for centuries in Christian history afterward. By the 4th century's end, the church was no longer small and marginal, but public, wealthy, influential, and politically entangled with empire. Outward victory brought inner questions that law could not solve. Christ, Trinity, power, and the boundaries of faith within public Christian life. These questions would be answered not by emperors alone, but by teachers and councils through sharp, painful disputes over Christian doctrinal language. After victory over persecution, another battle began. The battle for truth within the church's own confession before the watching world and God. In the next episode, we will see how that battle over truth changes Christianity and shapes the later centuries after Constantine's victory.